And then I want to and then hit record. So this says we are live on YouTube. So
Yay.
6 weeks, we did it.
Yeah.
So today we're talking about authenticity, showing up authentic. And, you know, I'm just thinking, let's go back 6 weeks. Remember that conversation we had after a call with our best friend, Bridget?
Yes.
And love us some Bridget. You know, and we were just like nervous, scared. Can we do this? Can we not do this? And guess what? We did it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now,
we definitely did.
if there's something that we have to do about this, or Bridget is gonna have a problem with it, what do we need to do?
Yes. And it is
Right.
it is so empowering to have that sense of accountability, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It was definitely the push we needed to get out here and get on YouTube and collaborate with each other and start putting our authentic selves out there.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, so in that, thank you. And we're going to celebrate today, having done 6 weeks of empowering women. And we have decided to do another 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I got an email from you yesterday with our topics for the next 6 weeks. So, and we're switching days. We're going to go to Wednesday.
Yes.
Right?
Same time, 8 a.m. Eastern on Wednesdays.
Wednesday. Awesome. And I loved your topics.
Yeah.
So that was
some exciting things to talk about.
Yeah. So today we're talking about helping women be true to themselves and authentic, showing up authentically.
Yes.
So why don't you start us off?
Yeah. So, the first thing that comes to mind for me, and I think we touched a little bit on this in one of our previous conversations. Oh, yeah. So when we were talking about communicating our needs, we were chatting a little bit about really understanding and recognizing what our needs are first before communicating. And I think that the same thing really applies to this topic. It's discovering who our authentic self really is, like who is our true self, taking away or peeling back all of those layers, taking off all those hats we wear, and really what's underneath that. Oftentimes, and I am 100% guilty of this, and I'm sure, you've come across this as well. But oftentimes when you ask a woman who they are, the response is, well, I'm a mom.
Right.
Well, I'm a wife. Well, I'm the director of operations in my job. Or the response is the titles. So the response is the doing things versus the being.
Right.
And I think there's an important distinction in that. Of course, our roles are important, and they play a role in discovering who our authentic selves are. But I think if you're able to sort of shift gears in how you're thinking about it and focus on the being, who are you being when you're in those roles? Who are you being when you're by yourself? Who are you being when you're in the grocery store? Just kind of stripping away the roles and the things that you're doing on a daily basis and connect with the person that you are, the person you're being.
Yeah. I remember years and years ago, I was reading a book and it was talking about that. Who are you? You know, if someone cut your arms off, who, you know, would that change who you are? If someone cut your legs off, would that change who you are? You know, and obviously there's a limit to how far that can go, things that you can cut off and lose in terms of body parts before you just don't have physically what it takes to function. But the point was, you know, we're not what we can do with our hands and legs, even with our mouths. That's not who we are. You know, so who are we? Who are we? You know, I said to you before we started, the two words that come up for me are integrity and impeccable. You know, and I think about integrity, you know, is, you know, and they say integrity is what you do when no one's around. How you act, you know, and I think of it like in terms of like, you know, my bottle of water, it has integrity. It's not leaking. You know, if there was a hole in it, it wouldn't do what it's designed to do. Well, there's a hole in the top, but if there was a hole anywhere else,
right,
it wouldn't be a bottle that I could put on my desk and hold water.
Right.
You know, and, you know, so integrity is really, I think, a critical piece of that. You know, and when we were talking about the 4 agreements, you know, the first agreement is be impeccable with your word, which folds right into that integrity piece. And, you know, when I read that, the first thing that came to my mind is to always tell the truth. Don't say things that aren't true.
Yeah.
Being impeccable with your word. But it's more than that.
Yes.
It's more than that.
It is. It is. Right. But if we're thinking about our authentic self as our true self, I like how you mentioned being impeccable with your word is telling the truth, right? So that totally applies to the authenticity piece, which is speaking our truth.
Right. And if going back to what you said, if we don't know what that is, we can't speak it. We can't show up authentically if we haven't taken the time to do that work, to find out who we are. And I feel like one of the biggest points of difficulty and struggle for us as women in this is dealing with all the voices and all the roles and input we've gotten from other people.
Absolutely.
You know, people tell us you're this, you're that, and they put these things on us. And if we listen and we give that value, and you tell me one thing and someone else tells me something different, then that can create dissonance for me. And you know, what if it's a mom? What if it's a parent who tells you something and then someone else tells you something else? and it creates that dissonance. And it's like, okay, what am I going to choose to believe? What am I going to choose to walk in?
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to another one of the agreements from our very favorite book, The Four Agreements, is not taking things personally.
Right.
And the things that people say about us, to us, do to us, if we are giving them value, if we are taking them personally, that definitely has an effect on living our truth and being our truth and being our authentic self.
Right.
You shared a great sort of metaphor or way that you think about not taking things personally and not giving those things value. Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So that has become one of my just really not taking things personally, not being attached to an outcome, and recognizing that I'm responsible for what I do and what I say, but I am not responsible for anyone else's response or non-response. How they choose to show up is all about them. And in the Four Agreements, he calls it their story, what's going on in their mind, and the story they're living in. And I love that he goes, they're either, each of us are either living in heaven or hell, depending on, our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of created this like metaphor of, or a visual that helps me in choosing to not take someone's words or actions personally.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do my races, I do half marathons. So when I do those, oftentimes people are doing longer races and sometimes just the halves, but they will have these little changing rooms, pop-up changing rooms that are like little tents in the parking lot. So they can go in there and change and get out of their wet clothes and out of their wet shoes and put on some dry clothes because they just ran 13 miles or 26 miles or whatever they did. And so they have like this little space where they can go, and you'll see them all over the parking lots in these big races. And so I just kind of imagine in a situation where I would be inclined or tempted to take someone's harsh words, or like he points out, even positive words. He says that, it doesn't matter whether someone says you're beautiful or whether someone says you're ugly. Someone says, I hate you, you're worthless. That has nothing to do with me. That has nothing to do with me. That is all their story. That's all their story. And when I realize that's their story, then I can just kind of go in my little shield, in my little tent, and their positive or negative just can bounce off of me. And I realize I am going to choose to show up the way I want to show up. And I'm not going to take personally feedback or someone else's, how someone else shows up.
Yeah.
Because that's theirs. That's not mine.
Yeah.
And the first place I was introduced to that was my coach asked me several years ago to watch a movie called The Crash, and it deals with racial issues largely, but one of the scenarios in that movie is this, I think it was a little boy, has this shield, and it's like he's living in an area where there's a lot of violence, and he just has this shield that keeps him from getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I want one of those. I want one of those.
Can we all have one?
Yeah. And then it just, I think reading that second rule, or that second agreement about not taking things personally, that just clicked. It just felt, there's your shield.
Yeah.
There's your shield, because it allows us to not be attached to the outcome. It allows us to recognize that I need to own my stuff, and my parents, my kids, my business associates, my clients, friends, you name it, they get to own theirs.
Yeah.
And we each get to be responsible for ourselves, what we do and how we show up. And it goes, it's a reflection of our self-talk.
Mm.
And I want to challenge anybody who listens to this with this question. Is there integrity in your self-talk?
Mm.
Is there integrity in your self-talk? Do you present yourself as confident and qualified at work with your friends, and then in your mind, where no one's listening, just beat the absolute crap out of yourself because you're not living up to?
Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great point, because we do tend to focus on, again, what other people say about us, what other people say to us, what other people do to us, but are we doing that same thing to ourselves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had some moments this week of integrity.
Yeah, I think so you were referring to one of my social media posts that I had posted yesterday. And we chatted a little bit about this before, kind of that the different phases of showing up as your authentic self. And for me, I feel like showing up as your authentic self, sort of inwards, like really diving deep into who you are authentically, which we talked about in the beginning of the conversation, is kind of like phase one. And then starting to really outwardly act on that, goes into some other phases of that. And so for me, I've been trying to show up on social media consistently and as my authentic self. And, that's something that we've been working on in the coaching community that we're in. And we've mentioned Bridget a few times, and she's been really pushing us to put ourselves out there and show up for the world to see as our authentic selves. And so that's something that I've been working on. I think these last couple of years, 2 to 3, I've kind of done that deeper inner work of figuring out internally who I am authentically. And now it's shifting gears to really putting that out and and putting it out consistently has been my challenge. It's easy to do when you're feeling really good, when you're feeling really connected. But it still can be challenging to do on a consistent basis, even on the days you're not feeling so great.
It is. And, we've talked a lot about the roles and the hats and then balance. And I loved the picture that you posted yesterday. It just was steeped with integrity. And what I saw in that post was integrity, but it was so much balance, because you coach moms in showing up and being balanced in those roles.
Right.
So can you take a second and share kind of what was going on in that moment, that captured in that picture?
I should show it. Anyone who's watching back the replay, you can check out the picture on my Instagram or Facebook under the Wellness Skipper or my name. But it was a picture of my daughter and I just having fun on the beach. And yeah, it's something that I feel like I've been sort of maybe lacking or just not making the time for is those fun moments. And I guess that fun, silly, goofy side isn't typically the side that I show, and it is authentic to me. But it's not one of those sides that I'm typically comfortable sharing necessarily. And so kind of in that realization, I really wanted to share a picture that really represented that for me, and, missing sort of that fun, silly time of not taking things too seriously and having fun with my daughter, my family. And yeah, just being able to kind of let go and not be so serious all the time.
I think the thing that really jumped out for me in that was your connection with your daughter. How you were just taking that time to just make that a priority.
Yeah.
With her.
Yeah, which is, another part that is very authentic to me, having that quality time with loved ones, and and that's something that can lack in our busy day to day too. Like, again, we get stuck in those roles and trying to do all the things, and we don't often stop to have that quality time with the people that we love.
And when we allow other things, work, emails, phone calls, appointments, to drown those out, and it takes a toll. It has an effect, not only on us and our impeccability, but on our ability to show up and be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, it definitely has a negative effect when we're not doing, the things that we value and the things that we're passionate about and the things that are important to us. And then on the flip side, and I kind of wrote about this in that post, it's like the things that we are spending our time on, we become resentful of that time and resentful of those things that we are doing. So, it has a negative impact on the things that we're not making time for, and it has a negative impact on the things that we're spending all of our time doing. So it's kind of like, across the board.
Which kind of circles back to, because our behavior, our actions are going to be a reflection of our mindset, the way we think. Our perspective, the way we look at things is going to come out in our actions. And so, circling back to, is there integrity in your self-talk?
Yeah.
Is that, how are you talking to yourself and talking to that person that you want to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that. And, to me, it just looked like so much balance, which is another thing that we strive for, is balance, because you were taking this precious relationship and this genuine value that you hold, and bringing it into all of who you are. It's like, and that's, one of the things we learned in school, in our coaching curriculum, was how we do one thing is how we do everything.
Yeah.
Which speaks to integrity and authenticity.
Yeah. I mean, if we're leading our life with that same mindset and that same self-talk, it's no wonder how we do things in each area of life are going to look very similar, because we're talking to ourselves in that same way.
Yep. So how are we doing on time?
I think we're just about out. We're getting there.
Okay. So next week, Wednesday.
Yes.
Morning, and Jessica has an agenda for us for our next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yes, very exciting.
So stay tuned, tune in, and we're continuing with empowering women.
Yes. Same overall topic.
Yes. And I think I also want to throw out there that if anybody's listening to this and they have questions or suggestions for things that they'd like for us to talk about, put it in the chat, and we will see that, and we'll address those things.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, I am gonna end the live, and we will see everybody